Welcome back to Desktop. Today, I've got a treat for you. A treat that you all have been waiting for, and you probably know because of the title of the video, but we are checking out the SMS Trinity, a laser that I've been waiting on since the dawn of the SMS HFXC when it passed my original bashing test. Now we're going to talk about why it is that this Trinity has earned its place on my duty rifle, but I want to let you guys know I've been testing this for over a month. I've got thousands of rounds now through my gun with the SMS on it. We've been working on this one for a while, and I really like the SMS laser. Before I get deeper into this, let me tell you what it is that you're going to get in the package when you get your SMS laser. If you want the short version of the video, you can go ahead and click away right now because the SMS laser is fantastic. It's sitting on my rifle and it will remain on my rifle until something better comes along. Right now, I think the SMS has now become the laser to beat. Before I get too deep into this, I do have to thank the channel sponsors. Guys, YouTube does not pay, so these guys keep my channel alive. If you use code PLEASE at any of their checkouts, not only do you get a discount, but it tells them to keep supporting me so I can keep giving input to companies like this and getting products like this made for you guys. I cannot do this without you. You guys are amazing. I love you. Let's get back into the video. Now, disclosures about partialities for this review. This is a completely unbiased review from the standpoint that SMS Lasers has been taking feedback from us on the Instagram DMs for improvement of the laser and many other creators. So this is as unbiased as I can be, although I want to note that a lot of the changes that they've made to this and the ergonomics of it are a direct result of mine and others' input. So basically you're looking at a laser that has a bunch of the design changes that I asked to see implemented to it. When you first get your SMS Trinity, it's going to come in nice packaging. I think it's a nice little fabric bag that can mount on your belt if you decide for some reason you want to carry this instead of mount it to your rifle, which is pretty cool. Inside of the bag, you're obviously going to get the laser. You're going to get a pressure switch that I think is actually really good. It mounts directly to a Picatinny rail, and then you're going to get a little Picatinny rail with an M-LOK adapter in case you have that. If you're a key mod, you're out of luck and you should change. The first thing you're going to notice is that your laser has goopy goop all over the button or the throw lever, and that is by design. It's intentional. This has earned itself an IPX8 waterproofing rating. That is the claim, and so I suspect that the goop that is all over the switches and the panels is just to help with waterproofing longevity. To test that out, I immediately took mine, filled a glass of water full, and threw it in and left it in there overnight. When I pulled it out, although there were a bunch of little bubbles around it, the unit itself turned on fine, it worked great, and there was no sort of water or any sort of residue inside of the glass, so I gave it a pass on waterproof rating. If you remember with my HFXC, I did manage to get it wet and I got a little bit of water in the lens, so that was one of my complaints. That was due to the scroll wheel. They have replaced that with a nice and smooth throw lever for adjusting the width of the IR beam, and the IR illuminator has been changed to something that I think is a lot better and clear, as you're going to see when I get into the testing, because I did take time to compare this against a bunch of other options on the market. I've got the Inforce IR illuminator flashlight that would go on your rifle, the HFXC, of course, a Somo Gear Engol. I think that is the other full power option that a lot of people are getting, especially in this price range at $499. And then I compared it to a Rovivon GL4 Pro, which is a light laser combo. In terms of build quality, this could not possibly be better built. I think that the build quality is fantastic on this. They did take notes from us and from my review of the HFXC. The turrets for adjustment are nice, solid clicks, and they are slightly recessed into the body of the unit. If you remember with the HFXC, my turrets are sticking out, and so I managed to really throw off the zero by bashing it into a tree because I think I directly hit and moved a turret. So after I determined that it was waterproof and it was going to be okay, I began to mount it to my rifle, and that's where I encountered the first issue with the SMS laser, and the only issue that I had. So the way the SMS laser is designed, it has its locking lug all the way towards the front and not in the middle or the rear, and at first that didn't make sense, and then I realized that the crossbolt also acts as a locking lug, so it really has two. It's kind of a redundancy system so that it doesn't move back and forth on your rifle. Now that locking lug means that if you go to mount it on a slimline Picatinny rail, which is what I originally have had on my rifle for the past 3 years because I like being able to wrap my entire hand around the rifle, it doesn't want to interface correctly. And that's because the Picatinny rail has to span the entire gap between the front to the rear of the unit. There's about a 1-inch gap that doesn't attach to any rail, and it takes side pressure. If your Picatinny rail doesn't completely fill that, you'll notice that the laser itself will mount angled or pointed to the left. Now, it's mounted securely, but it is in fact pointed in a direction that makes it next to impossible to zero, and not something that I want to mess with. Now, this is an easy adjustment for anyone who's running a slimline rail. If you're running a suppressor, you can just move it forward and mount the locking lug just in front of the Picatinny rail, because like I mentioned, the bolt itself acts as a locking lug in the forward position and the rear position. So even though I'm not clamped down on this, it doesn't move back and forth, although it does in fact sit freely. Now, I am stubborn, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure that for the test, I mounted it correctly with the locking lug in the rearmost position and interfaced correctly with the rail. Because of that, I purchased a Geisley full-length rail for this review. But again, you can definitely do this, and it's not going to shift. I wanted to make sure of that, and so instead of doing it this way and then having everyone tell me that the zero shifted because the locking lug was in the wrong place, I bought a whole rail to mount it to instead, and that's where I did my first zero test, which we're going to cut to here. All right, so first grouping with the SMS Trinity here. I've got it mounted on my Geisley rail, so the Geisley rail will have no shift. It mounts in 2 points, and the Geisley rail itself actually locks down, so the rail shouldn't shift. And so we'll check if the laser does shift. We've let the can cool down, so I'm just gonna tighten it because it's a little loose. And I've got the spotter scope pointed at the target. Target is 36 yards away. My scope is zeroed for 36 yards, and I slaved the SMS to the scope for the sake of me being able to very quickly tell if it shifts while I'm testing, but also obviously now we'll be able to do our grouping. So our first grouping here, we're just gonna do a quick 5 shots. And I'm going to turn the laser on. You guys should be able to see that. All right, well, I pulled one of those, so I'm gonna do one more. And there we go. Those are pretty dang stacked. So if we learned anything, we learned that my scope is slightly off, my red dot and laser, but we got a nice grouping, and I'm happy with that. You guys will see it here. I'll blow it up big so you guys can see it on my screen. I'm happy with that grouping. I might as well just do a 10er because I did 6. I might as well finish it off. Here we go. Anyway, AR-15 accuracy. Yeah, cool. So that's our first shot grouping. Obviously no shift. Okay, so how does the SMS Trinity compare to other lasers on the market? Unfortunately, since I moved out of Washington, I no longer have access to an ungodly amount of full power military lasers. I just have what I have on hand, so I tried to compare it to like priced lasers on the market. And then obviously what we know as the brightest illuminator, or bright as all of the military ones from my HFXC review, the SMS HFXC on high power. The Trinity itself has 2 power adjustments for the laser and the light individually. If you are on the laser, up is more power, down is less power. If you are on the light, up is more power, down is less power. If you are on the light and laser combo, up is the laser power, 10 settings, and down is the illuminator power, 10 settings. The other thing that SMS did that I think is really cool, and the reason you'll see me compare it to the Rovivon Illuminator Laser and the Inforce Just Illuminator, is that they actually give you a diffuser you can put over top of the SMS in order to make your illuminator just all over the place instead of a spot. So during my night vision testing, using the SMS laser was a breeze. It's actually so bright that I did not need to use it on high power at all. Even in pitch black, I think I was on setting 5, but honestly, you could run this on the lowest setting and my night vision seemed to be completely fine picking it up. It was incredibly bright. So bright, in fact, that the expensive little camera that I bought that's supposed to sit behind my PVS-14 and give you like an FPV of me shooting the drills was blown out the entire time, even with this on the low setting for the power. Now, all of my comparisons with the Trinity versus other lasers were done at 50 yards to give you guys kind of an idea of it, and it was set to its widest setting. All the other lasers were also set to its widest setting, so it gets a little bit wider than the Engol and doesn't quite get as tight as the HFXC. You'll notice in terms of power, it was on par, if not better, than every single light that I tested it against, with the exception of obviously the in-force illuminator being incredibly bright. So very bright on this light. This is ridiculous. This light here still provides more than enough to see, and therefore it stays on because this is just an illuminator, and this is an illuminator, laser, spotlight combo, and all of the above. You'll notice the cleanness of the illuminator. It is very sharp around the edges. I was very pleased with that, and it made pointing at targets very easy. Now, I used this in tandem with the D&T night vision scope for a little bit just to see how well the illuminator would work if I were trying to hunt or use it through an optic, and it worked flawlessly. I think you'll be able to tell. No problem making precision hits, and no problem with the adjustment on the illumination beam, being able to fill both the widest D&T thermal setting and the tightest D&T setting for high pressure. It's even, again, too bright in some cases, to the point where I would have it on probably low power for most of my use, and that is where it's sitting on my rifle right now because it's just so freaking bright. There's no complaint there because if you're trying to go far, you obviously want more brightness. Now you'll notice this also was sitting on my gun during the AS Designs arc fire review and all of that line of fire. At that point, my rifle was so hot I could not touch the handguard without gloves because it would burn my hand, and as a result, the SMS laser was also so hot I could not touch it without gloves, and it held up fine to that kind of heat. It's very cold in Utah right now, but I suspect I will have no problem with the cold weather as I had no problem with the hot weather. Battery life is fantastic, and it just takes standard CR123As, which almost everyone has on hand, and so I have no complaints there. Another compliment to SMS is that they did take feedback directly on the switch placement, and so it is directly behind the unit, bent inward to the point where the cord does not get in the way. Even my extra cord has just been tucked behind my unit right here for the entirety of the testing, and it hasn't come out or come undone in any way, shape, or form, and I suspect that pretty much everyone will have the same result where they like the way that this is. You can put it down or you can put it across, and it's not going to stick out at all, so it's not going to snag on anything, and it's not going to get in the way. It does use standard crane switches, so your Unity switches that you love so much and overpaid for are able to be used, although I really like the switch that the SMS came with, so I probably won't be switching mine anytime soon. Okay, so that is enough yapping about the SMS Trinity and all of its features. I'm sure you guys want to know, did it hold zero after all of its shooting? Let's find out. And I have not noticed any notable shift. I was using it last night with all of the night vision stuff, and I could not tell a shift in my point of impact. So if there is a shift, it hasn't been off enough to be noticeable. So we're gonna do a grouping here at 36 yards as we did at the beginning, and we're gonna do our best here. Laser here. So through my optic, it looks like there may be a slight. It's no longer exactly over the black. I see an ever so slight movement, but also that could be because I am clamped to my free float handguard that is moving around as I pivot. So there is ever so slightly a small amount of flex, so like 1 MOA or whatever. We're gonna try to lock it down here and take some shots. Yeah, no, there is no shift. Where the dot is seems to be where the gun is hitting. So yeah. All right, so SMS laser Trinity. No shift from regular use and no shift from the hand grenade. I've rendered it clear and safe here, and I know the next thought on everyone's mind is, what do you mean no shift from regular use? This is desk pop. So I have a hammer, and I'm just gonna give it a few little love taps, just a few little love taps here. Yeah, I bashed the side of that pretty good. So I'm gonna move the diffuser out of the way because I don't want to break it. All right, we're gonna see if there's any visible shift. I'm gonna adjust my camera here so you guys can see that I do in fact still have the target up there. I still have the target up there, so here we go. Is there a visible shift? Oh yeah, there's a visible shift. There is definitely a slight downward visible shift, so we're gonna take a look here. So you guys should be able to see, let me make sure this one's recording. Yeah, so you guys will be able to see where the dot is in relation to where the shot hits. I'm gonna now aim at this bottom one. I'm gonna put the dot, the laser here. I'm gonna put the laser on the impact point where it claims it's gonna hit. And that's how I'm gonna aim here. I'm gonna ignore my scope reticle so you guys can see the shift. All right, let's see if that's visible on this. And it is. So, all right, so it holds up to 5.56 recoil, no problem. Regular use, no problem. If you beat it with a hammer until it gets a nice little indent in the top of it, does it still hold zero? No, it shifts ever so slightly. I'm actually really impressed that it didn't shift left to right, it only shifted up and down. So I focused a lot of my impacts directly where the laser diode sits in the unit, and it seems to be totally okay. All right, so a 2 MOA shift at 36 yards. Is that the end of the world? No, I don't think it is. So we're going to talk about why. At distance, you are not pinpoint accurate with the laser. You shouldn't expect it to be. That shouldn't be your main focus of a laser. It is for pointing and shooting at body-sized targets, because if this were a scope, I would say, oh my god, a 2 MOA shift is horrendous. Throw it away. It's garbage. But since this is a laser, it's not designed to be pinpoint dime shooting accurate, because when you look at it through your night vision, it's a big bloom anyway. I think this does the trick, but we'll see. We're gonna get back into the studio and kind of get my final thoughts. Yeah, so that is the SMS Trinity. It held up fine to everything I could throw at it, including being bashed with a hammer. The unit that I have on my rifle is the one that's bashed with a hammer. It is working fine. It's holding up fine, aside from a whole bunch of dents inside of it. It's going to stay on my gun. I think it's fantastic. It is nothing compared to the HFXC. You'll notice when I bashed the HFXC, I've got dents in it, and I got a whole bunch of little craters and pits in that unit. This one did not do that. The rigidity of this unit is way improved. I think the metal's thicker. I think that they have intentionally jutted out edges where they can in order to make it more robust. It's super durable. I'm impressed with how little it dented from me just smacking it with a hammer a whole bunch. I think SMS has actually put themselves even more on the map with this unit than they put themselves on the map with the HFXC. This is very good. It's quite excellent, and for the price at right around 350 bucks, it is in fact the best on the market, and it makes you wonder, do I want 3 of these or 1 Holosun Iris, which is the other leading? Although this is in fact slightly larger than the Holosun Iris, it is very, very good and better than every other laser on the market. Now, is that to say that it's the best overall laser on the market? No, it's the best one on the market due to the price point of under 350 bucks. I don't think it's going to beat your full power military lasers that are super high end and like $11,000. However, it is going to do everything that I need it to do. It's going to be extremely durable, and it seems as if it's going to last a very long time. Time will tell how long this IR illuminator lasts, but if it is anything like the HFXC that's been on my rifle for over a year since the last review, I expect it to last a really long time and to keep on with the quality that I seem to be able to now expect from SMS laser. Now, I can only assume that if there are changes that need to be made to these in the future, SMS is going to take the feedback of people really seriously, just based on the way that they've taken the feedback from something like the HFXC and turned it into the SMS Trinity, which is just, again, a fantastic unit with no complaints from me. So should I buy the SMS Trinity? Well, that's going to be up to you. It beats everything that I put it against. I think it is, in fact, the best unit on the market. I like that the laser is directly centered over bore instead of offset to one side or the other, so I can just zero it in line with my optic and not worry about a cross pattern at distance. Now, that being said, again, a laser gets bigger as distance goes further, so you're not going to be pinpoint accurate, you're not going to be shooting dimes with these, but that's not what any laser unit is intended to do anyway. I just always have preferred my illuminator and laser to be directly center over my bore, which is what they did here, and I think that's really fantastic. It really makes me wonder what it is that Holosun is doing, that they think their unit is worth so much more than this, because this is, again, another laser unit made in China, much like the Holosun, with the same kind of slider actuator, although there is a push-button lock on this. I don't know why they did that. I am not a fan of having to press so hard to get it to slide back and forth. It hasn't been an issue when I go to activate it. It has not been an issue at all in use. It's just annoying, if that makes sense. So just the smallest of pet peeves, but it, again, hasn't been an issue. And it makes me wonder why anyone's buying the Holosun equivalent for 3 times the price when this is on the market. Do I think it's going to beat the $11,000 military lasers that are out there? Probably not. Not in terms of build quality, being able to take a bomb, like just overall build quality is gonna be better. However, for the price point of this, it makes me wonder why any civilian with regular access to currency, not access to dumb amounts of money, would purchase anything else for their rifle. The SMS Trinity has more than beat my expectations. I think that this is a fantastic unit. And yes, the little weird goop is strange, but mine's still in place. I haven't cleaned it off. I'm not going to. And then I guess if I had to gripe even one little bit more, I'm gonna gripe about the throw lever on this side that lets you choose between the modes. It's really easy to find without looking. As you can tell, I have no problem accessing it. It didn't actually present an issue to me when I was wearing gloves for adjustment because of how I adjusted it. I just bring my thumb in and move it forward, so that's just me. It's not something you can really grab with 2 fingers. It's just not easy to do that. And then because they have so much goop on this, it's a pretty soft click into place. That being said, if you're just trying to move it from, you know, off to on or move through your modes, you probably know what mode you're on and what mode you're moving to. And it's not like it gets stuck in the middle. It does have a definite click. That is just the only thing that I could possibly think of to complain about because the SMS Trinity is that good. It's that good.